Hello everyone and welcome back to our IELTS reading practice. Today we're tackling a very common question type, multiple choice with a single correct answer. Now I know what you might be thinking. Multiple choice can be tricky with options that look very similar. But don't worry, with the right strategy you can master this section and pick up some easy points. So before we jump into the questions and start hunting for answers, let's just take a moment to relax. Our goal here is not to be perfect, but to practice our skills. We'll start by warming up, getting a feel for the text and its topic. This is a great way to build your confidence before you dive into the details. Ready? Let's begin. If you'd like to solve this question yourself, just click the link in the description. And for many more practice questions, visit iltspro.uk, your place to get ready for IELTS with confidence. Citizen Science. First, let's look at our title, Citizen Science. This gives us a huge clue about the topic. Citizen means regular people, not necessarily experts, and science is, well, science. So the passage is most likely about how members of the public get involved in scientific research. Keeping this main idea in mind will help us understand the text's purpose. Now, let's talk strategy. Here's a simple game plan that you can use for any multiple choice question. First, read the question carefully and underline the key words that tell you what information to look for. Next, use those keywords to predict which paragraph holds the answer. Then, scan that part of the text to find the specific sentence or idea. Finally, compare each option to what the text says and eliminate the ones that are clearly wrong. Remember, the answer is always in the text, so don't rely on your own background knowledge. Watch out for distractors options that use words from the passage but change the meaning. And if you get stuck, don't spend too much time on one question. Make your best guess and move on. Paragraph 1. This is our introduction. It defines what citizen science is: public participation in research, and tells us its main result is both scientific and educational. Keywords to remember are members of the public, professional scientists, and digital platforms. Paragraph 2. This paragraph gives us historical background, showing us that the idea is not new. It gives us examples to support this point. Anchor keywords here are dates like the 19th century and 1900, and project names like the Christmas Bird Count and Galaxy Zoo. Paragraph 3. This paragraph discusses the pros and cons. It starts with the strengths like wide spatial coverage, but then uses the signpost phrase at the same time to introduce challenges such as uneven in quality and sampling bias. Paragraph 4. This section focuses on the impact of modern technology. It mentions helpful tools that have amplified the approach. Key terms to notice are smartphones, low-cost sensors, and machine learning tools, but it also notes new concerns like privacy and data ownership. Paragraph 5. This is the conclusion. It explains how citizen science can be successful and have a positive impact. It starts with a condition. When designed with clear questions, and then gives examples of its applications in areas like city planners and fisheries managers. Great. So the strategy is simple. We won't read the passage in detail from start to finish. Instead, we've used the title and a quick scan of each paragraph to get the big picture. We know the text defines citizen science, gives its history, discusses its strengths and weaknesses, looks at technology's role, and concludes with how to make it effective. Now that we understand the topic and the layout of the passage, we are ready to look at the first question. According to the first paragraph, what is a primary outcome of citizen science? Okay, this question is very direct. The keywords are first paragraph and primary outcome. This tells us we only need to look at paragraph 1 to find our answer. We're looking for a result or a main effect of citizen science. Let's check the options. It allows professional scientists to focus on more complex tasks. The paragraph says that citizen science expands the scale of observation beyond what small academic teams can achieve, but it doesn't explicitly state that this allows scientists to focus on other, more complex tasks. This is a possible implication, but it's not directly stated as a primary outcome. We should look for a more direct answer. This option is incorrect. It generates valuable data while simultaneously educating volunteers. Let's look at the last sentence of the first paragraph. The outcome is both scientific and educational, since contributors learn methods and gain a clearer understanding of local environments. Scientific outcome refers to generating data, and educational outcome refers to educating volunteers. This option is a very clear paraphrase of that sentence. It mentions both key aspects. This option is correct. It primarily relies on digital platforms to organise volunteers. The paragraph mentions that volunteers use digital platforms, but the word primarily makes this option too strong. Digital platforms are mentioned as a tool, but the text doesn't say citizen science mainly or only relies on them. The definition at the start of the paragraph doesn't mention them at all. This option is incorrect. It is most effective for research within a single local environment. The paragraph says that contributors gain a clearer understanding of local environments, but this is about the educational benefit for the volunteer. It doesn't say the research itself is most effective in a single local environment. In fact, it says it expands the scale of observation, which suggests a broad, not single environment. This option is incorrect. After reviewing the options, the answer is clearly B. The last sentence of the first paragraph directly supports the idea that citizen science has two main outcomes: a scientific one, data, and an educational one for volunteers. B. In the second paragraph, what do the historical examples illustrate? This question asks about the purpose of the historical examples in the second paragraph. So we need to understand the main point the author is making by mentioning things like the 19th century weather observers and the Christmas bird count. What idea do these examples support? The methods for data collection have remained largely unchanged over time. This option claims the methods are largely unchanged, but the paragraph describes keeping daily journals in the past versus using online projects and telescope images more recently. These methods are quite different, so the methods have changed. This option is incorrect. The practice of involving the public in scientific data gathering is not a recent development. Let's look at the very first sentence of paragraph 2. The idea is not new. The rest of the paragraph provides examples from the 19th century and the year 1900 to prove this point. This option, saying the practice is not a recent development, is a perfect summary of the paragraph's main idea. This option is correct. Early citizen science projects were mainly focused on conservation efforts. The paragraph mentions one project, the Christmas bird count, which was started by a conservation advocate. However, it also mentions weather observers informing climatology and classifying galaxies. This means early projects were not mainly focused on conservation. There were other areas too. This option is incorrect. The accuracy of older volunteer data was higher than that of modern projects. The second paragraph describes historical projects but makes no comment or comparison about the accuracy of the data, either old or new. This information is simply not mentioned in the paragraph. This option is incorrect. So, the historical examples are there to support the opening statement of the paragraph. The idea is not new. Option B is the best choice as it directly reflects this purpose. B. What challenge related to large volunteer data sets is mentioned in the third paragraph? This question directs us to the third paragraph and asks us to identify a challenge. The paragraph first talks about strengths, then it introduces challenges. We need to find the one mentioned in the text among the options. The data is often difficult to analyse due to its large volume. The paragraph mentions large volunteer data sets, but it never says that the large volume itself is a challenge for analysis. The challenges mentioned are related to quality and distribution, not size. This option is incorrect. There is a tendency for professional surveys to conflict with volunteer records. The paragraph says scientists address issues by pairing volunteer records with professional surveys. This suggests collaboration, not conflict. The text doesn't mention any tendency for the two to conflict. This option is incorrect. The data can be inconsistent and geographically concentrated. Let's check the text. The paragraph states, data may be uneven in quality, which means inconsistent and observations cluster in easily accessible parks and towns, which means geographically concentrated. This option perfectly matches the challenges described in the paragraph. This option is correct. Volunteers often lose interest in long-term data collection projects. The passage mentions that these datasets help researchers detect long-term trends, which implies long-term projects exist. However, the paragraph does not mention volunteers losing interest as a challenge. This option is incorrect. The correct answer is C. The third paragraph explicitly states that data quality can be uneven, inconsistent, and that observations are often clustered in certain areas geographically concentrated. C. According to the fourth paragraph, one effect of machine learning tools is that they... Alright, question 4 points us to the fourth paragraph and asks about an effect of machine learning tools. We need to scan this paragraph for the phrase machine learning tools and understand what the text says they do. Have resolved questions surrounding data ownership and privacy. The paragraph mentions machine learning and then, in the final sentence, says, these systems also raise questions about privacy, data ownership. So, these tools raise questions, they don't resolve them. This option is the opposite of what the text says. This option is incorrect. Allow new volunteers to contribute more easily to projects. The text says, machine learning tools can suggest species names for photos or sounds, which lowers the barrier to entry for new participants. If you lower the barrier to entry, you make it easier for new people to join and contribute. This option is a very good paraphrase of the text. This option is correct. Ensure that all submitted data is automatically verified for accuracy. The text says that machine learning tools can suggest names, while still allowing experts to verify records. This means experts, not an automatic system, do the final verification. So the verification is not automatic for all data. This option is incorrect. Reduce the reliance on expensive equipment like low-cost sensors. The paragraph mentions machine learning tools and low-cost sensors as two separate examples of how technology has amplified the approach. It doesn't say that one reduces the need for the other. This option is incorrect. The correct answer here is B. The passage clearly states that machine learning lowers the barrier to entry for new participants, which means it allows them to contribute more easily. B. The final paragraph suggests that for citizen science to have a positive impact, it must... Here we go, the last question. It refers to the final paragraph and asks what is necessary for citizen science to have a positive impact. We are looking for a condition or a requirement mentioned in the last paragraph. Prioritize resource conservation over informing public policy. The paragraph states that citizen science can inform policy and conserve resources. It presents these as two parallel benefits, not as a choice where one must be prioritized over the other. The text does not support this comparison. This option is incorrect. Be integrated into the formal education system. The text gives an example that teachers can turn local surveys into lessons. This is an example of an application, but the text does not say that it must be integrated into formal education to have a positive impact. It's a possibility, not a requirement for all projects. This option is incorrect. Be used primarily by fisheries managers and city planners. The paragraph mentions fisheries managers and city planners as examples of people who can use the data. The word primarily is too strong. They are just examples, not the main users. This option is incorrect. Be carefully designed and provide communication with its participants. Let's check the first sentence of the paragraph. When designed with clear questions, transparent validation, and feedback to contributors, citizen science can inform policy. Carefully designed is a great summary for having clear questions and transparent validation. And provide communication with its participants is a perfect paraphrase for providing feedback to contributors. This option directly reflects the conditions set out in the text. This option is correct. The answer is D. The first sentence of the final paragraph clearly lays out the conditions needed for citizen science to be successful, and this option summarizes those conditions perfectly. D. So, that's a wrap on our citizen science passage. We saw how to use the question keywords to pinpoint information in the text and how to carefully check each option against what the passage actually says. A key strategy to remember is to always be suspicious of strong words like primarily or only, and to look for paraphrasing, where the option uses different words to express the same idea from the text. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more IELTS questions, and follow us at eltspro.uk for complete resources and practice materials.